Welcome back, friends. I want to touch for just a couple of minutes on crises of malevolence. Now, forewarning that even studying crises of malevolence can invoke extreme levels of emotions from people because oftentimes people or systems are harmed during crises of malevolence. When we're talking about these sorts of crises, we're talking about individuals who are using often extreme or criminal acts to harm people or systems for the purpose of instilling hostility, or it could be seeking a certain goal or an outcome. Oftentimes, we might also say that there's terrorism involved in crises of malevolence because extreme tactics are used by antagonists in different sorts of situations. Now, as we'll see in just a minute here, crises of malevolence go way beyond specifically harming people, or we might think about shootings, or we might think about bodily harm, or things like that. So, what other types of crises of malevolence are there? Well, there is bioterrorism. Okay, so way back several years ago, when people were sending anthrax to people in the mail or to governmental officials, that would be considered a crisis of malevolence for sure. Cybercrime becoming way even more prominent in our world today because of our reliance on technology and the time spent on things like our iPhones. So cybercrime, stealing information, stealing identities, stealing financial information, this is a very big problem that you'll read about in the textbook this week. Also kind of related to cybercrime, but using the internet to defame people. Okay, oftentimes this can happen on social media sites or blogging. In the textbook, it talks about blogging as a form of crisis of malevolence. We can also see this outside of the workplace, as we will read about some cases, but we can see malevolence in the workplace. So intimidation of people, harassment, things like that. And there's several different cases you'll read about. We can also think about when people are spreading rumors about different organizations or people. That would be considered a crisis of malevolence in a serious way as well. So how would you go about addressing strategies to deal with crises of malevolence? Let's shift a little bit into that. So of course we're going to kind of you'll notice as we go through these modules that a lot of the elements of each type of crises is very similar, but there's details that are different. So here we're going to start with the mitigation or the reducing of the vulnerability of threats. So an organization becoming aware of what could potentially happen to them and seeking ways to avoid or to reduce the levels of harm. So increasing things like security measures, reducing the frustration of people and or parties that are involved with an organization, oftentimes can reduce the potential of a crisis of malevolence. So mitigation, number one. Engaging in intelligence activities, number two. We're in a world today where we have a lot more systematic control of intelligence, not only on the governmental level, but also on the private corporate level. So understanding your security measures, who you're dealing with, what they're doing, when they're accessing, when they're using information, all those sorts of minutia is exactly what I'm talking about here. Improving the preparedness. So this could be both the public flow of information about what would actually happen if there was a security breach, let's just say in an organization's computer system, or what would happen if there was some breach of information like that. Improving alert systems. So how are you going to actually transmit that information and open a pathway for communication in a time of crisis? Remember, crises emotions are heightened. So the more that you can have systems of preparedness and you can have everybody at the same playing level with awareness and acceptance of what's going on, then you can take the action. Exercising security measures and enforcements of law. Believe it or not, I've seen a lot of cases where organizations don't even understand the laws at hand. Okay, you might think about the financial crisis of 2008, which the textbook talks about. A lot of the parties at play did not even understand the regulations, the financial regulations at play in the United States of America. Those were internal audiences. So external audiences, such as yourself, you might have been during that time period. You might not have even understood the security measures and the law enforcements that were possible during that time. And then taking recalls, products or services so that people are not harmed. This depends on the type of crisis and malevolence. It could be a health crisis, obviously. If something is poisoned, that might be a time to recall products. So that's something else you want to think about. But overall, crises of malevolence can be very, very harmful. We know about that, and we're reading about that this week. Whether people are victims of terrorism or product tampering or cybercrime or rumors, the financial crisis, again, of 2008 was a crisis based on rumors as well, about what people were saying, when things were going to collapse and how they were going to collapse. Obviously, there was a lot of deception and skewed values in that as well. So you can see that we're cross-pollinating our different types of crises in our course. But really understanding the threat and vulnerability is the best thing you can do looking into a crisis of malevolence, and actually trying to address it. Review the cases this week. You'll certainly see crises of malevolence, and I want you to carefully review the lecture notes as well. There we talk a lot about understanding the facts, maintaining control of the crisis team and the contingency plan, and as I've alluded to a little bit here, how can you eliminate the hazard? How can you understand what's actually going on and save people's lives, and keep them out of harm's way? Another thing to think about is conducting ongoing public opinion research about how vulnerable an organization is to certain crises of malevolence or threat, because oftentimes different parties are at play in these crises. But create awareness programs, create access of channels of information, a lot of the tenets of things we've been talking about as well. So just a little bit of notes on crises of malevolence. Looking forward to seeing you soon, friends. Thanks so much.